Played on the 30th of December, this was Fischer's last game of 1963, where he demolishes grandmaster Pal Benko in only 21 moves. Unsurprisingly, Fischer starts with the move e4, and Benko replies with g6, known as the modern defense. And in this position we have transposed to the Pierz defense, so-called, and the f4 move is known as the Austrian attack. After Fischer's Austrian attack, he follows up with a move knight f3, Benko castles, and Fischer plays bishop d3. And in this position, Benko plays bishop g4, which Fischer doesn't like. Instead, Fischer recommends knight to a6 and gives the line e5, d takes, f takes, and knight d5, where black is doing fine. But Benko played bishop g4. Fischer doesn't like this move because after h3, bishop takes, queen takes, Fischer has now won what's called the minor exchange, where you get a bishop for a knight. Benko plays knight c6, Fischer goes bishop e3, and notice how Fischer now has full choice over which side to castle on, queen side or king side. Benko plays e5, a logical move, fighting for the center and preventing also Fischer from playing e5 himself. And Fischer takes with the d pawn and then goes for f5, wants to play g4 and then g5, and follow it up with f6 with what he calls a deadly bind, or a winning bind actually. So Benko, after f5, decides to do something about this, obviously, and so that's why he takes on f5. Fischer takes with the queen, and now he goes knight d4, offering the pawn on e5, which Fischer considered taking, and it would have been quite interesting actually had he done that. He gives the following line: queen takes, knight g4, with a discovered and a double attack on the queen. And now he considered the move queen takes g7, queen sacrifice, and h takes g4. And this would have actually been quite strong for white. I checked with Stockfish 17, and that chess engine actually quite liked this for white. You can see that although black has a queen against two bishops, the black king is vulnerable. White will castle queenside, and yeah, basically he has a lot of attacking chances here. Fischer didn't go for this. He instead chose the move queen f2, which is also a good move. And now Benko played knight e8. Even though it looks like a retreat, it's actually just rerouting the knight to d6, which prepares to play pawn to f5 to counter white's attack on the f-file. So it's actually a logical move. And now Fischer decided to castle kingside. He considered castling queenside, but in the end he decided that his king was safer on the king side. And so now the knight does come to d6. Fischer played the move queen g3. And here actually Benko could have played the move f5. It would have been interesting. And Fischer gives the line bishop h6, threatening mate in one move. Queen f6, and then a series of exchanges on g7, followed by e takes f5, knight takes, and rook a to e1, with an advantage for white. But luckily for us, the game didn't go like this, because what happened in the game is much more fun actually. So after queen g3, instead of f5, Benko got out of the pin with king to h8, and so Fischer plays queen g4 just to clamp down on the f5 square and prevent black from putting the pawn on f5. And Benko played c6, didn't want the knight to come to d5. And now Fischer plays queen h5. The threat here is to take the knight on d4 with the bishop on e3, And then after black recaptures, then white will push the e-pawn up to e5 and threaten not only the knight on d6, but also queen takes h7 checkmate. And this is something that Benko has to deal with. Fischer and Stockfish, by the way, they both actually say that either knight to e6 or c5 was necessary, because both eliminate the sequence bishop takes d4, e takes d4, which is a losing sequence for black. So after queen h5, this is the threat, and Benko sees the threat and does something about it. Unfortunately for him, what he does is actually losing. The move queen to e8 does lose, and it's all because he misses a very beautiful move that Fischer will do quite soon. So now Fischer wins with the move bishop takes d4, and after e takes d4, here Benko was expecting the move e5, threatening mate on h7, where he intended to play f5, which would have been actually quite strong for him and given him an equal position. Both the white queen and the white knight on c3 are hanging, so this would have actually forced Fischer to take the queen on e8, where, like I said, black is absolutely fine. However, after the move bishop takes d4, e takes d4, instead of e5, Fischer surprised Benko with a move that Benko overlooked, and it's quite a beautiful move. You might want to actually pause the video here if you haven't seen the move, and try to see the move yourself before I show the move, which I will do now. Fischer played the move rook to f6. As you can see, the bishop can take the rook, and if black does that, then e5 wins immediately, because now there is no way to stop the mate on h7. And the queen is coming up, and the bishop will be protecting the queen, and there's just no way to stop that. Now, of course, you're not forced to take the rook, and Benko certainly didn't do that. And by the way, if you take the knight on c3, then e5 leads to a forced mate as well. So obviously you would have to play the move h6 here, but it doesn't work after rook takes. And if you take with a bishop, then there's obviously mate like this. And even in this position, if you play king g8, then there is a simple mate with sacrificing the rook once again, and then queen comes to h7. So just to show that taking the knight doesn't work either. So after rook f6, you can't take the rook, you can't take the knight, and so Benko played king g8 instead. Fischer played the move e5, again threatening a mate, and after the move h6, Fischer could have simply taken the knight on d6, and after queen takes e5, this is actually the line that Benko was hoping for. Queen takes, and then knight e4, and now you can take the rook. But even if this had happened, white is still winning here. The two minor pieces are much stronger than a rook, at least in this position. So this is what Benko hoped would have happened, but Fischer crushed his hopes once again after the move h6. So instead of taking the knight on d6, Fischer just played knight e2, and this is where Benko resigned. I want to explain briefly why he resigned in this position. First of all, you cannot move your knight on d6, because then queen f5 just simply mates on h7 quite easily. And if you take the rook, then there's also going to be a mate after queen takes h6, and there's no way to stop queen h7 checkmate. You can only prolong your suffering by putting the knight on e4 or f5, but that's no good. White just takes, of course. So you can't move the knight, you can't take the rook, and if you do anything else, let's say for example rook d8, then there's a simple win by taking this knight, and for example after queen takes, then just take, and white is a piece up, easy win. But actually after the move rook d8, which didn't happen because after knight e2, Benko resigned, but we were looking at rook d8, rook takes d6, which wins, but the grandmaster move here would have been rook a to f1, just showing that there's no rush, because black can't do anything anyway. You can't take the rook and you can't move the knight still, so this would have been an even stronger continuation had Benko not resigned. So, for example, after c5, wanting to push the pawn to c4, then there is this line e takes d6, and let's say if you take now, then there is queen f5, and now black can give up his queen to stop the mate like this, check and take. But this is easily winning. You can't even take the pawn on d6 because of queen g3, check, winning the rook. And if in this position, instead of bishop takes f6, if you go queen e3, and then you go queen g5, now white can just take this and move his rook away, and white is still a piece up, easily winning. So let's just go back one more time to the position after the fatal mistake, queen e8, Fischer took on d4, he takes, and here Benko was expecting e5, which would have been met with f5, and black is doing fine, but instead Fischer played the absolutely beautiful move rook f6, and 2 moves later Benko resigned. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I've always liked this game because when I first saw rook f6, I was so impressed. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.